Good day to all. I am Maria Rosario, Victoria Guzman from West Visayas, the College of Communication, West Visayas State University, La Paz Street, Iloilo City, Philippines. Our study, Survival Sex, Perceptions and Prospects for Interventions, ETIC Approach. The researchers, Dr. Guzman from the University of the Philippines, College of Medicine, Dr. Ricky Becodo from West Visayas State University, Development Communication Division, and yours truly. The study was made in Iloilo City, Western Visayas, Philippines. Education comes at a very high price for the young girls who come from a disadvantaged background and who dream of uplifting the plight of their poor families. Hopefully, when they get to finish school, they will be able to support themselves, contribute to the daily expenses of their families, and even send a younger sibling to school. But to be able to pay for their own education and daily allowance, some of these young girls have resorted to survival sex. Survival sex refers to a transactional relationship of participating in sexual acts in exchange for money, sex, drugs, food, shelter, or any other daily means of survival. Survival sex is about getting by in a world of poverty, prejudice, and disempowerment. As one woman puts it, this is how we survive. The term is commonly used by the sex trade and poverty researchers and aid workers throughout the world. In the Philippines, survival sex is prostitution engaged by young women because of extreme poverty. It describes the practice of marginalized people, particularly young adolescents, trading sex, not limited to basic needs, but to get easy money to pay for their daily allowance, for their educational needs, and even for comforts and luxury items that their own poor families will never be able to afford. These young women and adolescents are motivated to engage in survival sex when they have no other options. Given their economically disadvantaged position, they do not have viable alternative means of paying not only for their basic needs, but their educational needs and personal needs. Prevalence estimates of the proportion of runaway and homeless youths who engage in survival sex range from 10 to 50%, with a variation in estimates due to the source of data, sampling strategies, age range of respondents, and profiles involved in survival sex. Understanding survival sex is associated with homelessness and intimate relationships. The reasons for homelessness of young people reveal that most of them have the primary conflict with their parents as the primary reason for their homelessness, which is related to dysfunctional families, sexual activity and abuse, pregnancy, sexual orientation, school problems, and peer pressure, alcohol, and drug use. Survival sex is also common in internally displaced people in armed conflict areas, in refugee camps in Uganda, where it was reported in 2005 that the women and girls were engaging in survival sex with other camp residents, local defense personnel, and government soldiers in exchange of the protection and survival of their own families. Recently uncovered was the increasing number of students engaging in survival sex to pay for their educational needs, given the high cost of tuition and other school fees. Based on random interviews of taxi drivers, they have acknowledged that they have been bringing quite a number of young girls, usually after school, even some of them wearing their school uniforms and school IDs to motels and lodging houses in Iloilo City, accompanied by a male consort. According to them, the students engage in survival sex with clients and engage for money that they can use to pay the needed balance for the tuition fee or sometimes to satisfy their vanity or material needs. The incidence becomes quite rampant, especially during midterms and final exams of the academic year. The main objective of the study is to determine the knowledge, attitudes, and perceptions of taxi drivers on young passengers who frequent motels within Iloilo City. Specifically, it aims to determine knowledge and attitude of the taxi drivers in Iloilo City about survival sex and to assess their personal experience and perceptions regarding the profile of passengers and their companions who were brought to the motels, which age of their passengers, and the frequency of the visits. The ETIC approach realizes that the members of the culture often are too involved in what they are doing to interpret their cultures impartially. So this research design will make use of this approach. When using this approach, the researcher is the one who emphasizes what is considered important. An ethic account is a description of a behavior or belief by a social analyst or scientific observer in terms that can be applied across cultures. That is, an ethic account attempts to be culturally neutral, limiting any ethnocentric, political, and or cultural bias or alienation by the observer. Okay. Study design, a descriptive cross-sectional study which made use of survey questionnaire of key informant interviews of taxi drivers regarding their knowledge about survival sex in the city. Basically, the research examined the phenomenon through an ethic lens. Sample size, a total of 95 taxi drivers gave their informed consent to respond to the survey questionnaires. Data collection, interview questionnaires to gather the responses through the help of junior students and uh, ethical consideration. Of course, we have the Data Privacy Act of 2012. The protocol informed consent and questionnaires were admitted to the National Ethics Review Committee for review and proposal. A total of 95 were interviewed, and as to the social demographic profile of the respondents, all of them were males with an age range of 25 to 60 years old. Length of service, so of the majority of the respondents were already experienced, with 47% having less than 5 years and 53 respondents with experience of more than 5 years. In relation to out of the 215 persons brought to the lodging houses or motels by the taxi driver, 57% were college students, 21 ages 25 to 40, and 22% were below 40 years old. The profile of the companions of these were 50% of the same age as to the college students, and 50% were noted to be older. It was observed that the most frequent passengers to the motels were college students. Half of the number of frequent companions of the students to the lodging houses or motels were also students. As to the frequency of visits and the number of passengers brought to the motels in 1 week, out of the 87 frequent visits to the motels, the taxi drivers reported that they brought 67% of their passengers on a daily basis from Mondays to Fridays, and 18% on weekends, and 21 on holidays. After the survey questionnaire was done, the taxi drivers were asked regarding their stand on survival sex. Majority recommended strong family ties, good upbringing, discipline at home was necessary, and they believe that the involvement of the local government unit has to take action to protect the young people. As to the issue, um, as to the issue, through survival sex, the young women were able to meet their subsistence and consumption needs, provide for their families, finish their school, and maybe even enjoy the leisure in life, given their purchasing power. But despite these perceived benefits, The risk behavior was also shown to create opportunities for sexual abuse of the young women, put them at risk for STDs because of unprotected sex, increased morbidity in women due to early or unwanted pregnancy, and increased the risk of cervical cancer given their involvement of having sex with multiple partners. This is a wake-up call for the protection of the rights of the women and children with the RA 9262, anti-violence against women and children, that will lead the involvement of multiple stakeholders to address the public health concern. So the study highlights the urgent need to develop intensive and long-term services and provide alternatives to survival sex. So all stakeholders, the government, family, and school should work together. And the issue has been raised to the local government officials to address the public health problem of violence against women and children. As a response, the local government created a city ordinance regulating the operation of lodging houses, pension house, inns, motels, apartels, and other similar establishments in the city of Iloilo, and providing mechanisms, therefore, and other purposes to promote youth welfare. Other recommendations include strengthening family ties with government, supported campaigns among the youth, provisions for scholarships, student loans, and for jobs and livelihood opportunities for young people so as to be able to support themselves, and the need to create awareness through information campaigns and IEC materials on anti-violence against women and children and survival sex. Further, recommended that further investigation can be done by targeting the at-risk population and vulnerable group of young women to document their experiences, to conceptualize their experiences from their own perspective and the risk factors that drive them to resort to survival sex. Thank you very much. Let us work together to protect our youth, strengthen family ties in our own families and that of the others. Thank you and good day.